Hey, Pastor Josh here. We are reading Genesis chapter 13, verses 1 through 4, and Abraham is now going to leave Egypt. So let's jump into our reading. So Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the Negev. Now, this is an example for us to follow. Abraham went up from Egypt. If you remember, last few readings, we saw that Abraham got into some trouble when he went down there. He lied, and he kind of got his hand slapped by Pharaoh. The Lord was gracious and kind to watch over Sarah in the midst of Abram's foolish and stupid mistake and choice to lie. God protected her, and how good it is that the Lord has His protective hand over us many, many times when other people do silly and sinful actions. And now it is time for him to go back to the place that God has called him to. If you remember, Abraham went down there because there was a famine in the land. And it was prudent for Abraham to go down to Egypt to care for his family. But it wasn't prudent, it wasn't right, it wasn't correct for him to stay there forever. And so now it is time for him to return back to the place where God had originally called him. An example for us to follow. I wonder if it is that you sense that the Lord has a particular thing for you to do. Now, just because we sense it doesn't mean that is what the Lord wants us to do, but perhaps there's this burden for the Lord to do something particular with your life, perhaps a particular ministry you feel burdened of the Lord to do. There may be a time that is put on pause because of a famine, because of some sort of circumstantial situations. But there is always a time to go back, to go to the place that God has called us to. And God is calling Abram to go and settle the land of Canaan, or to live amongst the Canaanites. So verse 2. Now Abram was very rich in livestock. Let's not forget that Abram was not poor in regards to earthly items. He had a lot, and he actually continues to amass a lot. It seems like he got a lot when he was in Haran, and when he went down to Egypt, he got even more. Because once Pharaoh realized that Sarah was Abraham's wife, they ended up giving him all kinds of riches, just like the Israelites are going to get a whole lot of riches when they come out of Egypt after all of these plagues happen. And remember, the original audience for the book of Genesis are the Israelites when they come out of Egypt. After they cross the Red Sea, when they get to Mount Sinai, they're receiving the Ten Commandments and receiving all the law and the instructions for the tabernacle. This was for the Israelites. And so here again, we see that the Israelites are coming to Mount Sinai. They're going to have a lot of money, a lot of riches that they're supposed to be using to worship the Lord, and supposed to be using to serve the Lord. We know ultimately they actually use those riches to build a golden calf. But Abram here is very rich in livestock. He has plundered the Egyptians. He is rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. And he journeyed on from the Negev as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai. And so now he goes to the place where his tent had been at the beginning. If you remember, it was that mountainous area where he had been at for a little bit. He prayed to the Lord, but for whatever reason, he did not feel like it was a place he needed to stay permanently. He went back to that place. So it might be some journeys that the Lord has taken you on that has been a bit uncomfortable, has not been exactly what you think was right. An attitude you need to change in regard to that is that oftentimes in those uncomfortable places is where the Lord actually meets you the most. And so now he has gone back where his tent was at the beginning between Bethel and Ai, to the place where he had made an altar at first. You remember he had worshiped the Lord there, and what did he do? And there Abram called upon the name of the Lord. He remembered that time that the Lord gave him a place to stay, and he then called upon the name of the Lord again. An example for us to follow is to remember the kindness of God, to revisit those places, perhaps in our mind, even perhaps going to them physically, and remembering how God has taken care of us, and for us to offer the appropriate worship and the praise that He is due. I pray that has been a blessing to you. I'll see you all in the next video.